Okay, welcome to Postcard Tag, which is a digital Newberry library release event, one that we're celebrating here during National Postcard Week. My name is Brad Hunt, and I'm Vice President for Research and Academic Programs here at the Newberry. We have an exciting lineup today to tell you about the Newberry's crowdsourcing initiative, and it's one that you can participate in. So I hope all of you will consider helping us out. Our goal today and our goal with this project called Postcard Tag is to improve the digital accessibility of thousands of historic postcards from the Newberry's collection. Today you'll hear about how crowdsourcing works, about how you can tag postcards, about the Newberry's Postcard Collection, and about why postcards are such a rich and important source for research. Plus, we think they're a lot of fun. We have 4 panelists today, and I'll introduce them as they appear. So first up, we have Samantha Blickhan, who works with the crowdsourcing platform Zooniverse on a postdoctoral fellowship funded by the Institute for Museum and Library Services. She recently earned her PhD in musicology from the University of London, and she's going to talk to us about crowdsourcing. Take it away, Samantha.
All right, thank you very much. I'm just going to share my screen here. The purpose of my really short talk today is just going to be to introduce you all to the Zooniverse platform, which is what the Newberry team have used to build their postcard tag project. Just want to give you a quick grounding in the practice of crowdsourcing, who we are, what we do, and then we'll pass it along back to the Newberry team. As Brad said, I'm based here in Chicago at the Adler Planetarium. So what is Zooniverse? Zooniverse is a platform for what we like to refer to as people-powered research. We host a number of projects which invite a pool of volunteers to help research teams basically process large amounts of data. And the platform is maintained by a team of developers and researchers who are based at Oxford University, the Adler Planetarium, and the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. And since the platform launched in 2009, more than 2 million registered volunteers have produced more than 250 million classifications cumulatively. And there are currently about 80 US-based institutions that host lead researchers on Zooniverse projects. We also work with research teams around the world. And so basically the way that Zooniverse projects work is for each project, multiple volunteers will interact with what we call a subject, and that's basically a piece of data. So it's usually an image, but could also be a video or audio clip. So volunteers will see each subject and then engage in a task or series of tasks based on that particular subject. And to illustrate to you how projects on the platform look to volunteers, I've included a screenshot here from a currently active project called Mapping Historic Skies, which invites volunteers to engage with the Adler Planetarium's collection of celestial cartography. So in this particular workflow that I've used as an example here, you can see there are a bunch of green boxes all over this image of a globe. What we're asking volunteers to do here is draw boxes around individual constellations within these depictions, which we then crop in a post-processing step and feed into a second workflow that asks the volunteers to identify the constellations by name. If they don't know the name of the constellation, they can follow a decision tree workflow that answers really simple questions so that they can help us and participate even if they don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of constellations and historical constellations as well. So basically, this is kind of the general layout of a Zooniverse project. The subject's on the left, the instructions and the task are on the right. And here's another example of what that looks like. This project is called African American Civil War Soldiers. It's a collaboration between researchers at University of Chicago and NYU. And it invites volunteers to help transcribe enlistment records of African American Civil War soldiers. So again, you see the subject is on the left and the list of tasks is on the right. And so for this project, it's a transcription task until you make it public. So it's really easy to just sort of experiment and iterate before you have any sort of commitment to engaging with the public. So just before I pass it over, just a couple of pieces of information about the types of the numbers of people, excuse me, that are using the platform. One of the great results of working with so many research departments across the country and continually working on new tools and updates is that we've really been able to consistently increase the rates and the volumes of data that are being processed through Zooniverse projects, which then leads to an increase in the number of research teams that want to build crowdsourcing projects. And outreach events like this one really do help as well. I appreciate the Newberry team for inviting me to talk to you today. So that first big spike that you can see in this graph here was actually a result of launching the Project Builder tool in July of 2015. So since 2009, we've launched more than 200 projects and 97 of them are currently live, and you can scroll through and try some of them out if you visit zooniverse.org/projects. So this is our contact email address, and that's a link to our GitHub repository. All of our code is open source, so feel free to take a look if you are so inclined. And do feel free, of course, to reach out after the presentation if you have any additional questions that don't get answered. Otherwise, that is it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Grateful for that introduction to Zooniverse, and the Newberry is grateful to partner with you all to be one of those 97 projects with Postcard Tag. So now after that introduction to crowdsourcing, let's turn to Jen Wolfe, who is the Newberry's Digital Initiatives Manager. She has spent her career building digital history projects, developing cultural heritage crowdsourcing projects, and thinking about digital pedagogy. Jen, will you take it away to talk to us about this specific Postcard Tag initiative?
I will. Hello, everybody. Before walking you through Postcard Tag, I thought I'd start giving you some quick background on crowdsourcing at the Newberry. And speaking of background, oh, you see what I just did there. And some of you might be wondering, like, did she just go outside in defiance of stay-at-home orders? You guys know I am still in my kitchen, but thanks to the magic of Zoom plus digitized postcards and a bed sheet and a lot of tape, you too can go on a fake world tour. So try this at home. And I do have to hide my button because it sort of looks like I have a hole, like I'm a scary ghost. It's not really the look I was going for. Anyway, here's the real background. The Newberry's been hosting crowdsourcing projects for several years now. This is a screenshot from Newberry Transcribe. We're seeing a sneak preview of the redesigned site. We are so close to launching. To date, the public has transcribed more than 40,000 pages of handwritten letters and diaries, which is why you're able to do a search such as this one and instantly get a comprehensive set of results, which would have been pretty impossible at this scale pre-crowdsourcing. But the tool that powers the site wouldn't really help for a postcard project. Here you can see we collect the transcription data in a full text field, so it's just a single blob. And, apologies for the jargon. But with postcards, the goal is not free text searching, but rather structured data, like you see in this catalog record. Data that it's both transcribed into discrete elements and also assigned as subject and place headings. And that made this project resemble less like a humanities-based library project and more like what our citizen science friends over at Zooniverse have developed to deal with structured records like specimen cards. And that's why we were really excited to learn about Zooniverse's Project Builder. It lets anyone, as Sam mentioned, set up a project like this to enable transcribing, also data structuring and subject classification. And we cannot say enough good things about Zooniverse and their Project Builder. We're big fans, and it's super easy to use both for staff setting up the projects and the end user volunteer. It looks great, and best of all, it is free. And not just for the software, but Zooniverse will also host all of your images for free. And I presented with Sam before, so I know she doesn't love when I say that because it's technically not free and that someone's paying for it, but she's muted. So we will just move on to a perilous live demo.
Careful now.
Oh no. And here we are. Let's just click this button to get started. And it's pretty straightforward. So the first task is to mark and transcribe the caption or title. So we draw a little box around it, type in high school building, Evanston, IL, and boom, that's our title.
Now, Jen, why can't computers figure that out?
Computers can figure it out. They can certainly read the text, but they would not know to call it a title. And that's sort of the key for catalog records, is naming the elements.
Identifying the elements, yeah.
There you go. Production number, we've got a 261 over here. And I do not see a date. So we will go on to add the place information. Illinois and Evanston. Oops. And finally, we can enter some subject headings. So first you want to choose like a broad category from the, my little floating head is covering this, from the drop-down menu, in this case, another one for education. Oh, this one will say high school buildings. And really that's about it. I mean, you don't want to get into like adding trees or whatever every time you see a tree. If there were like students prominently featured out front, you could put that in. But basically you just want your subject headings to be coextensive, so they cover the objects that's being viewed. And that's it, you guys. We did it. We participated in supporting scholarly research, and now we would either click done or there's this button, done and talk, and that would take us to the project bulletin boards. And that is something that comes with all Zooniverse projects, and it's a way both to build community. And it lets staff answer questions in public, and they don't have to, answer the same questions privately in email all the time. So, I will just quickly show an example. Did I pull it up already? No. They're all good questions. But my favorite is from one of our beta testers. If only I'd pulled this up before. Here's
Jen, while you're looking for that,
no,
you got it. Okay.
You can ask me anyway.
Well, there's a question from our audience for you and Samantha about what, and it dovetails on my question. Are there artificial intelligence elements to Zooniverse that can detect anything, or is no? Is it mostly, this is why we have to have humans tag this, right?
I believe Samantha is building robots that can do it all.
I mean, really, it's a good question, and I think so. I typed an answer in the chat, which you're welcome to read as well. But I think it's really a good question, and is less about sort of Zooniverse functions and more about the type of data you're working with and the questions that you have, because the effectiveness of automated processes is going to be dependent upon your data. So computers are going to do much better job of tasks that are based around pictures, for example, than they are around text. Or thinking about even the differentiation between something like OCR for printed text and handwritten text recognition. So there's a really wide range of applicability and the differences there. But I will say that a lot of project teams do use Zooniverse generated data to train these models. So having a massive amount of data that has been provided by humans via this platform then becomes a really effective training set in a lot of cases. So we've had several teams use that process and sort of make a human-computer interaction loop there.
Well, I'll just mention that with the postcards, we don't have to have you draw the box. We could just, have a blank field that says enter the caption here. But with the box, we get coordinates, so to kind of teach the system how to tag the elements.
Thank you, Jen. Thanks, Sam, for answering that question. Thank you, Jen, for explaining all this. This has been great. And again, if anybody has further questions, please put them in the Q&A box, and our people will answer, the panelists will answer, and we can bring them up as well for those who want to discuss more. Let's turn now to Will Hansen. Will is the Newberry's Director of Reader Services and Curator of Americana. Jen, I'm going to ask you to stop sharing your screen. Thank you. If you come to the Newberry, you'll likely see Will running our reading rooms, but as Curator of Americana, he knows our collections inside and out, especially our postcards. Will loves postcards. Will, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Brad, and thanks everybody for joining us today. I do love postcards, and I'm excited to talk a little bit about them. I'm going to be very brief, but the postcard collection at the Newberry is what you would be working with in this postcard tag project. And it's pretty exciting because it is one of the great collections of postcards in the world. It is probably the largest postcard collection, at least in the US, if not in the world. There are something like 2.5 million items in it. There are a number of duplicates within that, so there are at least 500,000 unique images represented in the collection. Before you say that's way too much to work on, not all of them are digitized yet, although we're working on it. But there are tens of thousands of unique digital images to work on in this project. So it's a very exciting opportunity to work with this world-class collection of postcards. It is really an unparalleled visual archive of the 20th century, is the most succinct way to put it. It covers a whole range of topics, a whole range of places. The heart of the collection is the archive of the Kurt Teich Company, which was one of the great postcard creators of the 20th century. The next speaker, Ellen Handy, will speak more about that, so I'll skip over that for now. But that's really the heart of the collection. But beyond that, there are collections of other postcard companies, like the Detroit Publishing Company, for instance. There are collections that are focused topically, like a collection focused on Route 66, and a number of other topics. It's a whole wonderful range of material, mostly from 1890 to 1980 or thereabouts, although a little bit later and a little bit earlier. So it is one of the most wonderful collections we have, and it's a wide variety of material covering just about any town you can think of in the United States and Canada, many places internationally, and many things beyond geographic as well. Funny postcards, cute postcards, holiday postcards, you name it, there's probably a postcard for it. So it's a really exciting collection. I did recently give an online tour of the Newberry's postcard collections, and particularly what's available for them online. I'm going to put a link to that in the chat right now, so if anybody wants to hear me go on for longer about the Newberry postcard collections and what's in them and what's available to you online, you can go to that link and watch about a 15-minute talk about it. But for now, I think I'll stop there, and we can hear a scholar talk about what's interesting about postcards.
Thank you, Will, for that. And we're appreciative for all your work on the postcard collection. I want to now introduce Ellen Handy. Ellen teaches, Professor Handy teaches at the City University of New York. She's a historian, a curator, and a critic of photography and modern art. She has been a curator of visual culture at the Harry Ransom Humanities Research Center at the University of Texas. And she's been a curator at the Department of Photographs at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And she's also a regular columnist for Arts Magazine. I'm going to turn it over to Professor Handy.
Thank you, Brad. And hi, everyone. I'd like to talk about the vast and magnificent Kurt Teich Company archive at the Newberry. And I have a PowerPoint that somebody who is not me knows how to put on the screen. And it's Will. Yay. Thank you, Will. This collection includes millions of postcards, extensive production files from the printing of individual cards, decades of the company's business records, and much more. The Kurt Teich Company, and note their credit line marked by my red arrow in the lower left corner, was renowned for their now iconic greetings from postcards like this one. Could we have the next slide, please? There are so many reasons that this collection is a treasure and a resource to scholars, as well as to postcard collectors and enthusiasts. I'm a historian of photography, so I'm most fascinated by postcards as expressions of the profoundly democratic nature of the photographic medium and its ubiquity in everyday life. Postcards are increasingly precious examples of ephemeral visual culture of the 20th century. Once upon a time, they were for sale in every drugstore, bookshop, train station, and at every tourist attraction, and they were regularly sent and received by almost everyone, whereas now we express ourselves through the immateriality of FaceTime, Zoom, texts, tweets, Instagram, and the like instead. Photo postcards offer invaluable visual evidence for scholars and historians of many different kinds, and are often inscribed with poetically terse messages between correspondents. And they are mass-produced artifacts of the commercial image printing industry, which was so well developed in Chicago by 1900, when postcards became popular. Next slide, please, Will. Here are two postcard views of what the Kurt Teich Company proudly proclaimed to be the largest postcard factory in the world on Irving Park Boulevard. Next slide, please. When we think of picture postcards, we most often think of images like these of famous landmarks, sites, and monuments. Next one, please. Or these, which celebrate the glamour and the joys of travel and of tourism. Next, please. Here's a particularly splendid one. Next, please. but actually views of much less famous or dramatic American small towns and cities are equally typical, like these, which I found in the Newberry digital collection by using Main Street for a search term. The enormity of the Tyke Company's production, and as Will told you, of the library's holdings, is so great that a lifetime of research wouldn't suffice for an individual to explore or document all of it. So the scale of the archive invites group investigation. Next slide, please. Tyke Company postcard photographers industriously recorded innumerable main streets lined with modest businesses under blue skies. They recall the fictitious small town of Gopher Prairie in Sinclair Lewis's classic novel, Main Street of 1920. Next, please. From research into the Kurt Tyke Company's production files for postcards, I've learned about the kinds of post-production work at the factory that went into printing postcards from source photographs. The addition of jaunty American flags, removal of distracting traffic, and simulation of nightfall are all part of the story. The image manipulation involved in many postcard views was like Photoshop long before digital image manipulation existed. Next, please. In this low-res image made with my phone, you see the way that a black and white source photograph was colorized at the Tyke factory in printing it as a postcard. Next, please. And here's another of my research snapshots showing a Tyke Company production file for a postcard of a Pittsburgh scene. The arrow points at the instructions on the tracking paperwork for the job, which reads, "Make a night scene." Presumably the subject was a popular one, making it seem worth retouching the image to create an additional nocturnal version. Next one, please. So here's the source photo for the daytime postcard we just saw, and by its side, the dramatic moonlit scene it became through hand painting the moon into the sky and turning the lights on inside the office buildings. Next, please. On the left is the staff of the busy retouching department inside the world's largest postcard factory, hard at work colorizing images, turning day to night, and making other editorial changes to postcard images. And on the right is one of the many mighty offset presses, which allowed the Tyke Company to produce millions of colorful cards rapidly for sale. Next, please. The Tyke Company employed a national network of agents and salesmen to distribute their products. In-house publications like these prompted them to meet ambitious sales quotas. Next, please. When the library is able to open again, I'm hoping to return for more research into the business of commercial photographic image printing in Chicago and the ways in which the Kurt Tyke Company's postcards were distributed and circulated from their points of origin, postcards pouring forth from the factory in Chicago to be sold and mailed all around the world. Meanwhile, we can all enjoy the collection in its digital form and perhaps take part in the crowdsourced initiatives you've heard about today. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. I appreciate that. That was just terrific. Thank you for that look into postcards as a visual form. We have several questions here from the audience I'm hoping my colleagues can answer. And I'm going to ask a few of these. One is, are we transcribing the text on the back of postcards as part of this initiative? Do we, Will, do you have a sense of that? Jen Wolfe had to leave. Jennifer Dalzin might have an answer. Let me get Jennifer Dalzin on the line here. Just a second. Jennifer Dalzin can answer that one. Whoops, I don't. Yeah, go ahead, Will.
I believe I can say we certainly are interested in the text on the back of the cards as well. I don't think Jen Wolfe showed it in the demo, but I do believe we are including the backs of cards whenever we have images of them, and welcome the inclusion of that data as well.
Something that if it helps to add, just thinking about, the structure of building a project, one of the really nice things about crowdsourcing, and the project builder in particular, is you can always add another workflow to your project at any point. So you can always sort of start with a first pass of structured data and the kind of stuff that Jen described in her talk. But that's certainly something that can also happen. It's not sort of this one-time pass and you have to collect everything all at once. You can continue to iterate.
Jen Dalzin, are you on the line? Can you help with that too?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I can't see me. I'm I don't know where I am. But yes, we are very interested in doing postcard backs as a future project. For this initial round, we are using a lot of digitized images that we got as part of the collection in 2016. So they're kind of legacy images that don't have the backs yet. So we're working to digitize material with fronts and backs, and you'll be seeing some coming in soon that have fronts and backs and the added task of transcribing messages that people sent to each other.
We had another question about the subject headings that Jen Wolfe used. Is that a controlled vocabulary or a natural language?
We have both. So we have topics that fit into a controlled vocabulary. That's the drop-down box that you see, and those basically just put them into categories so we can display them in various tools in the future, so you can do some browsing. And then we have some natural language that we're asking from people. Now, with both of those things that come through, we also have a team of librarians who can take those and we will map them to some of the standard library subject headings that we have. So it's really going to be a variety of things, 3 different ways that people can get in. If you like library subject headings, you can find those. We're not expecting the public to know those or use those. So we've provided 2 different types of subject analysis for people to use.
Thanks. Will, we have several questions about, hey, I have some postcards. Does the Newberry accept postcard donations?
Yeah, a lot of the collections that we hold were given as donations of individuals' collections. We are fairly selective about them because we, as we've already said, do have 2.5 million items already. So we have a collection development policy for postcard collections, which I can certainly respond in the Q&A about that and put in the chat as well to send you to. But if they meet the criteria of that policy, we are interested in adding them to the collection. We'll have a discussion with you about that.
Great. Can we go to Ellen with the question about kind of the history of postcards? Yeah, when did this become a medium for communication?
Well, postcards blossomed all around the world just about with the coming of the 20th century. They did exist earlier, but in the US, they weren't popular until the post office initiated an advantageous stamp price for the postcard as opposed to the letter. So if you want a simple way of thinking about it, 1900 is really a good marker. Before 1900, postcards, not hugely important in the visual culture of the world. Afterwards, ubiquitous and fundamental.
Thank you. do we any other questions out there? We've had a really interesting conversation about the Newberry's postcard collection. The question, one of them is, what's available online? Will, what percentage of the collection would you say has been digitized, and what collection percentage is available even untranscribed?
Well,
Untagged is a better word.
Jen Dalzin could certainly answer this as well, but it is a very small percentage that has been digitized so far, although we're working on it all the time. It is probably something like roughly 10% of the unique postcard images in the collection are digitally available. There are records for many more of the postcards, over 400,000 of them, but most of them do not have images yet. It takes a long time to get the images made and posted for that many cards. So it's a pretty small percentage. But even that pretty small percentage is an enormous amount. 40,000 is an awful lot. It's an awful lot for any one person to do. So that's why efforts like this are so important. And it's important to note that it is increasing regularly at the Newberry. We have a lot of digitized postcards that have just not been made public yet because they need quality control to be done. So there will be more and more and more getting added in the coming days, weeks, months, and years, until eventually, fingers crossed, as many of them as we can digitize, we will have digital images of.
Yeah, people think it's really easy to, just digitize this stuff. It's a very time-consuming, labor-intensive, and therefore costly thing to do. Yeah.
Particularly if you want to do it well and you do want to do it right the first time.
So Brad, we have close to 30,000 postcards in the postcard collection that we'll link to. That's a little bit deceptive because one of the things that we have done is we digitize all variants of postcards. So some of those are kind of bundled together. So for example, if we have one postcard that says, happy holidays, and another one that says winter greetings, but the same image, both of those will be digitized and put up online for people. So right now about 28,000, and even working from home, our staff is working to get more out for people. So you'll be seeing more in all of our digital collections and in Postcard Tag soon.
Terrific, terrific work. I want to thank everybody for taking the time. Thank you, Ellen, Will, Sam, Jen Wolfe, and Jennifer Dalzin, who's our Director of Digital Initiatives and Services. Thank you all for participating. Postcards are so much fun, so interesting, so rich. And I want to hope everyone considers helping us out with Postcard Tag. Go to the website, go to our crowdsourcing initiatives. Postcard is one of several, and help and participate. So thank you all. And with that, I'm going to end our webinar. Thanks for attending, and thank you all again. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Ellen. Bye, Will.
Bye-bye.
Sam. Thanks. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.